It's an honour and a pleasure for me to be here. I am home, like I'm from Dublin, I love Dublin, but I feel like I'm coming home to Ireland. Thank you very much to JP for inviting me here. I feel quite privileged to be here among all my peers, and I was quite surprised to be invited, to be honest. And it's quite nice for me as well to meet so many people here today that I do know, and my old chef, Neville Maguire, and my lecturers here, and Sweeney, and it's so nice when I see so many people come to this kind of event. It's really special. So yeah, basically, when I was looking at the topic originally, the future of food, I was thinking, obviously, I spoke to JP as well, and he said, talk about the future of food. What is your future in food, or what's your future? So I suppose I've been at L'Autre Pied for nearly 5 years now as head chef, and in the next couple of weeks, I'm actually moving across to Pied à Terre. I don't know if a lot of people know this yet, but basically, I actually trained at Pied à Terre, so I've kind of come full circle. And because I started from scratch as a commis chef, worked my way up to junior sous chef, and then I left. And then I became a head chef at 25 at L'Autre Pied. Never been a sous chef, never been a head chef, never written a menu, never written a rota, never came up with a couple of dishes really. And I suppose when you're young and you're passionate, you have that sort of energy. That's what gets you through. I mean, I hadn't really got a clue what I was doing, but I was working myself into the ground 18 hours a day, 6-7 days a week, because it is a 7-day-a-week operation. And so I suppose what I want to talk about is my career going full circle, like going back to where I kind of started in London, but also my cooking. So I suppose my motto of the last 5 years since I became a head chef has been nothing goes in the bin. And it's quite nice that some of the other chefs who are here today have already sort of touched on that subject about no waste and everything else. But I think, yeah, it's quite obvious that no one's copying each other, but just that people think in the same way and people work in the same way. So I suppose the idea behind that was sort of the only pressure I had as being the head chef was maintaining a food cost. So it was my sort of idea that, well, if we can stop putting things in the bin, and that can be anything from, if we're using grapefruit segments to make a grapefruit emulsion, we'll try and use the skins for something, make a powder or make a stock. Stuff like if we make like cucumber brunoise or perfect bowls or perfect rolls, you always have the skin and the trim, and instead of chucking it on staff food, try to come up with a solution or something that you can serve with. So we reduce all the cucumber trims, season them with sushi vinegar, and then freeze it and create like a little granita. And what that does is it's adding layers and textures to your dishes. So the food's already automatically becoming more creative. So what I want to say is I titled my presentation From the Basement to the Roof, and you might be thinking, what's he talking about now? Basically, Pied à Terre is an old 1873 townhouse. It's a tiny little building. The basement kitchen is 600 square feet. So I know a lot of people here work in tiny little kitchens as well, but it is bloody tiny. And basically, my idea, because I said I've been working, same as everyone else, 18 hours, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, it's not obviously to work like this for the rest of my career. I'm not getting out of the kitchen, but I just want to try to work a little bit smarter rather than harder. And also for myself, I think like with this style of event or with anything like TV stuff or any extra sort of curricular stuff, I call it, I've always been just saying, no, I'm too busy, I can't do it. Like if this was happening maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I would have said no, can't do it. And I think my idea for the future is for myself is about making time for this sort of stuff. So when I say from the basement to the roof, when I was working at Pied à Terre maybe 6 years ago, Shane Osborne was the head chef, and he had the idea to use the roof space, like a lot of people do. It's not a new idea, to create a rooftop garden. But unfortunately, since he left and since whatever's been happening in the last 5 years, that's derelict. Like it's just gone to nothing. So, but the base is still there of what we created. So what I've been doing in the last sort of 6 weeks is I've been working 2-3 days in L'Autre Pied and 2-3 days in Pied à Terre. And while I've been over there, I've been trying to re-establish the compost system. So obviously, there comes what I'm saying about nothing goes in the bin. So instead of also trying to figure out what to do with what I said before about offcuts of vegetables and fruit, it's also looking at food waste. So I suppose when I was listening to Matt's talk, I suppose he's at a more advanced stage than I am in terms of where he's going with the greenhouse and everything else. And I wanted to get a chance to talk to him because I think I'm at the beginning of that stage. So I'm going to re-establish the garden, replant everything, and with the compost system, it's just to be able to show the guys that work there how to work in a certain way. So being obviously, I could never become 100% sustainable. There are a couple of amazing people out there. There's a restaurant in Shoreditch called Poco. There's a restaurant called Silo in Brighton, and these guys are 100% sustainable, and it's absolutely incredible what they do. But to give you an idea of what I'm going to do in the garden, or what we've already started doing with the compost, is we keep, like what Matt said about the coffee grounds from the coffee, things like vegetable stalks, fruit and veg peelings, even the cardboard that comes in from the suppliers. Like, I mean, we're shredding all that down, and or all the paper that gets shredded in the office, we're reusing that in the compost as well. Even things like when we mix eggshells with water, they create calcium for the fertilizer. So it's obviously, like, listening to Matt, I don't know if anything's going to taste very good, like, initially, because we don't have any open space. Like, it's a tiny little building. Even the rooftop itself, like, is about 200 square feet. So it's not like we're going to be planting masses of vegetables. We would never be able to sustain or produce enough food to actually supply pied à terre. But it's more about teaching my team of chefs to, because it's not just me who's going to do it. I want to use my chefs and me as the sort of passion to show everyone else that works in the building as well that they can get involved as well, and sort of like creating that team effort amongst everyone. Also, just to have that feeling of being able to use one or two of those. Like, we're going to grow stuff like Jerusalem artichokes, which grow to about 15 foot tall till they actually seed. Celeriacs, fennel, all different types of radishes, icicles, rainbow radishes, tomatoes. But we tried that before, but it's kind of difficult. And a few little of the edible herbs like cornflowers and all different types of mints and stuff like that. But it's just for them to see the process of actually, obviously, like with the food cycle, it starts with the soil and with the compost. That's the beginning of any food cycle. And I suppose if we're then creating, like, reusing all the waste to go back into the compost, to go into the garden, to grow our own veg, to then use it back down in the kitchen, we're creating our own cycle within the restaurant. And it's just for them to produce dishes that they will then see one or two of those little salads, or using a celeriac. Celeriac seems to be quite popular at the moment in this talk, and or some of the Jews artichokes on one or two of the dishes. It's an incredible feeling, like, to have that buzz, to be able to do that in this sort of built-up environment. Like we don't have any space, so to do our little bit to try and work a bit more sustainable. So I haven't really referred to my notes much. I need to have a. So the rooftop will basically be the starting point for creating a new way of working. So for me, like I said, I don't want to spend 18 hours in the kitchen. I want to try and make, that's like what I'm saying about for this event, I'm making time to be here. I want to make time during my daily routine to do my garden. To also, with that, I was thinking, when you're working in a kitchen, not just in London but anywhere, I think chefs and whatever restaurateurs, they become so focused just on themselves and on restaurants and on what they're doing and what they're doing in their own kitchens. You sort of forget about the outside world. So my whole thing is, what I already started doing at Lotre Pied, is I want to be more involved in that local community. Like, obviously Lotre's over in Marylebone and Pied's in Fitzrovia, but it's just quite nice to be able to be a part of the local community and make a few friends amongst the other local businesses, not just restaurants. I mean, even over where Pied à Terre is in Charlotte Street, I've already spotted a couple of restaurants that they are utilising space. They are using their rooftops for gardens as well. So yeah, like that's all really good. Then recently I've been reading a lot about the work of Dan Barber in America, who's obviously, like, absolutely, like, way further down the road than what I'm going to do, but it's just, he's very inspirational. It's nice to have a look at what these guys are doing and take an inspiration of how we should all be working, or how we could all be working. I think what I read when I was reading his book, The Third Plate, it really resonated with me and made me question everything what I was doing, about how I was actually working. And I think for the last 5 years, like, even though I've been saying, like, nothing goes in the bin, I haven't had that opportunity to actually create the compost and look at sort of using as much as I can to become partially sustainable is what I'm trying to say is what I'm going to do, rather than becoming fully sustainable. So um, moving on from that, I will say um, I was looking at sort of the two buzzwords at the moment, chef shortage, and a couple of people mentioned it already. I think there's quite a few short-term solutions being used at the moment, i.e. less hours for chefs, less opening hours, but I think not all of us are in a position to be able to close a restaurant for half a week or, restaurant where I come from, it's open 7 days a week. I'm a shareholder in the business, I'm co-owner, but I also have 4 other people to speak to who don't actually work on the premises. So all they're looking at, I guess, is figures. So an idea that I have for the future is children. So what I've been doing for the last 4 years, what? That probably came out wrong. Um, I think, okay. Anyway, um, with the chef shortage, I think if we can get young people interested in food and in the hospitality industry, it can be a solution for the future because hopefully they will choose that as a career path. So I suppose what I've been doing for the last sort of 4 or 5 years at Lutra was we do work with a company in South London called Trident, and they work with all the disadvantaged schools from Dagenham and those sort of areas. And basically the kids will come in, and of course they're not all angels or whatever, but they'll come in, they'll work 9 to 5, 2 weeks, and I suppose we do kind of wrap them up in cotton wool, but genuinely some of them are very passionate about being there and about learning and about obviously they're not doing anything overly strenuous, but just for them to actually see like vegetables and all that sort of stuff like in its raw form, and then to see what the chefs are going to cook with it is like kids are very curious, and I think it's our responsibility to sort of use that curiousness and turn it into like knowledge, give them back some knowledge. And that's what I want to do as well. Is like I'm getting to a certain age now where I want to give something back. I want to start sharing my knowledge and not being so closed on my restaurant and with my sort of blinkers on and not looking outside in the outside world. I want to share my knowledge with people, and particularly like young people, because I think they are the future, and it is important to recognise that they have an important part to play, obviously in the future. So. What I want to do then with the garden is try to organise like a school trip where they can come and help me plant some of the new vegetables and salads, and then obviously come back like a year later and see the progress of what's actually happened. Obviously, I think Jockey was talking about it earlier. Somebody asked a question about there is obviously recently on the Jamie Oliver programme there is a school that actually created their own garden within the school. My only worry for that was is it I was thinking was it not just for the sort of privileged schools or the and the sort of like the private schools or whatever it was. I don't know what kind of school it was, but I think if what I'm trying to do is create a model that I'm not saying every chef has to start going into all the local schools and start getting kids in the kitchen. I know it's not obviously always viable, but I think if I can create a model and show that it actually works, that maybe other people will follow suit and they will think that it's a good idea and they will actually pick up on the idea or maybe take it a step further. I don't know. In addition to that, I've even been, I don't have any kids myself, but my business partner has 2 young kids in the St. Clement's Dane School in Covent Garden, which is obviously sort of theatre land, like very bustling place. It's all built up as well. But what one of the school teachers organised was that I go in for sort of a morning and show these are 8 and 9-year-old kids, and show them how to make fresh bread. And I mean, obviously there was 1 or 2 troublemakers, but like generally, like most of them were like so passionate and so like because I was showing them how to make like let's say a sort of it's an olive and parmesan bread. So not a lot of them even tasted like black olives or parmesan before. But it's like you make the dough from scratch, like on one of their sort of school tables with the flour and the water and the yeast. And they were all kneading it, and then we rolled it out like a pizza dough, and then rolled it up, and then they see it baking, and then cooling down, and then tasting it, and it was incredible to sort of for me to see like that there is a passion there, and I think what I wanted to do was sort of not take over from the schools, but sort of help educate or assist, and try to show them that because there is no food on the curriculums, which I think is a shame because it is an important life skill, and I think if the chefs can go into the schools or sort of be a part of that, we can definitely teach people how to do things. So with the roof garden, I wanted to extend the idea of nothing goes in the bin, but also just to reignite an interest of the staff. So I think like you get stuck in your daily routine, or even if you're a waiter, not even in the kitchen, of just going in, like, well, the chef's going in, doing your mise en place, doing your covers. And I think sometimes, yeah, you forget where maybe, you know, the food comes from, because you're just ringing up at 12 o'clock at night and placing your orders, and then the stuff comes in the next morning. So you sort of, that's what I want to sort of move away from. It's just sort of showing them that, like, how everything works and how it grows. And I think it's going to be an amazing thing for the guys that actually work there. So it's very easy for a chef just to forget about like what's going on. But I think you have, like what I was saying, I need to make time to do these things. Like they expect that of me, like my staff, to push us further, like to create other ideas, create other things. I'm going to finish up. I just want to my sort of, I suppose, closing paragraph was I wanted to talk about, there is actually quite a flourish of initiatives and projects like this already in place. So when I did my research, like, I'm not the first chef to come up with a roof garden idea and trying to be more sustainable, but I was quite interested to see in London recently that on the Dalston Kingsland Junction station, the Mayor of London has put in a new system where they're doing they're revamping the aisles into vegetable patches, and they're introducing solar panels being installed for a new project called Energy Garden. I don't know if anyone's heard about it, but you can check it out. And basically, there's also local communities sowing, growing themselves, and beekeeping on different roofs of schools, such as the USC school in Hampstead, which is really interesting. So I think what's important is it's obviously not on a large scale yet, but I think seeing like one or two schools starting off the process, or like with the campaign at the moment at London on the overground, like planting stuff, I personally think that's incredible. And then once my garden's fully functioning, I want to contact these organisations and hopefully offer some knowledge or advice on what they can do with the finished vegetables. Also, next year I plan to be a part of the Edible Garden Association, which has open days to celebrate like inner city gardens, because obviously it's more difficult to create a garden in a built-up environment. I just then also wanted to say, I'm a member of Slow Food UK, which obviously promotes a better way to eat. But I suppose what I was trying to get across today is I'm trying to promote a better way to work for chefs. And then in terms of the future of food, I think within our restaurant, but not just for our restaurant, but for others as well, I think like for chefs, we've become like these figureheads, or like celebrities on TV, and I think we have a lot of power. Like for me personally, I think like chefs are, it's never been so popular, like cooking and restaurants and everything on TV and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's our job or our responsibility to shape tomorrow's food culture. And then I think we can manifest it in what is actually possible and necessary for the future. Yeah.